Hey everybody, it's Peter and this is the Hyundai Venue. In the past, I have had trouble recommending this car because I had my own biases standing in the way. I always felt like the Kia Soul was a better version of this than this. However, I've kind of come around on that. The Kia Soul has a larger, less fuel efficient engine. It is a little bit larger vehicle, but doesn't have a whole lot more space inside. And this one is packed with value, including a number of features that the other videos probably aren't showing you. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. Try to show you how I've come around on this car. And I especially like this trend model with the little bit larger wheels that I always felt was like a downfall of this car. The smaller wheels just kind of give it a little bit of a different stance. The bigger wheels on this car make it look right. And like I said, I've come around on this car and I'm looking forward to showing it to you today. So if you have questions about this car that I don't answer in this video, make sure you subscribe and let me know in the comments below, because I'm filming here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and they give me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. And if you have questions, I can come back to this vehicle again and again and again and make sure I give you sort of a video database of information all about this vehicle, or I can compare it to competitors. I've already compared this to something like the Nissan Kicks, so you can find that on my channel as well. There'll be a whole lot more. All right, let's get going with this review. So one of the reasons that vehicles have become so expensive lately is because of all the safety equipment that people are throwing in. Now, some of those safety equipment things are things that you may or may not want. Things like self-steering. You can get that in a Venue where it has lane keeping assist or even lane follow assist in the Kia and Hyundai lineup, but this particular model doesn't have it. And I think for a lot of people who don't want a smaller car that steers for itself, I think that is what people are looking for. So it doesn't have a little camera up here, which doesn't give you the forward collision avoidance. That's a safety feature that's really good, but it's something you're paying for that maybe you don't want to pay for in your brand new vehicle. The Venue still offers that without those kind of features. You can also get different kinds of lights here. I do have the vehicle running. The daytime running lights are running. This one has projector beam headlights, which are good. Used to be the fully modern headlight. Now they can go to an LED type model in higher trim levels, but this one's just the regular halogen ones. So you have a nice sharp cutoff with a focus light, but not that bright white LED. You just have the traditional halogen light, which again, a little bit less expensive if you were to get an fender bender and break this. LED lights going to be a little bit more expensive to replace. Nice signal lights up here, and again, nothing fancy, just a squared off kind of look to the front end. 1.6 liter engine in here with an IVT transmission, which is Kia and Hyundai's way of saying a CVT transmission. A lot of people are nervous about CVT transmissions. This one on this car doesn't concern me at all. They use these types of transmissions in much heavier vehicles, so it can easily handle all the work that you're going to put this vehicle through. Let's move our way through and look at a couple other features in this car. Taking a look at the profile of this car, you can see it's actually kind of handsome the way it is. Again, it's not flashy, this isn't a Ferrari, but it is a practical box on wheels, and there's a lot of little features that you don't see. These little plasticky panels here and the plastic panels down there, they're going to keep you from getting rock chips, stone chips, that kind of thing on your paint in the common areas. So when you're driving this car in the winter and you get all that salt and road sand and all that stuff shooting up over here, it's shooting up on the plastic as opposed to shooting up on the paint, which means it's not going to chip the paint, which means you're not going to have those rust issues as well. Just a little thing that's kind of a big thing. Now the other thing is, even though these are upsized wheels, they're not that large for modern cars, which means when you have to replace tires, when you have to replace brakes, this is a fairly inexpensive vehicle to do those kinds of things on. So long-term maintenance, not that expensive. What's also cool is you have a roof rack. There are not a lot of small, efficient cars, and I'm going to call this a car even though they want to call it an SUV. There's not a lot of small, efficient cars that have a usable roof rack. Now this does have a little bit smaller trunk. You can see it's a shorter kind of car. So if you need to take extra gear with you that 1 or 2 times a year for a vacation or something else, you can get a roof box. You can put stuff up here. You can put kayaks up there. You don't have to get a hitch on it to put your bicycles. You can put your bicycles on the roof, that kind of thing. So it's a really practical roof rack, and it's a really solid roof rack that is, you know, built to the vehicle. That's something worth mentioning. The other thing that's cool about this car is it has, well, okay, let's just point out the signal lights here. They're kind of unique. You have a little extra design in there. But what I was going to point out is you have blind spot detection in here. What that means is that there's a little light in your mirror that is activated by a radar plate back here. That radar plate sees your blind spot and it can warn you in the mirror. Not a lot of smaller cars have that. This one does. The big benefit of something like that, though, is when you're backing up. Imagine you were parked next to me and I was a minivan. There's no way the driver can see past, but let's say the minivan ended about here. As you're backing out, the rear of the car clears the minivan. This radar plate can now see this way when you're reversing, not just that way when you're going forward. So it looks out beside you and it can see oncoming traffic, it can see oncoming pedestrians. So even if you can't see them in your backup camera, it can sense traffic coming towards you and it can warn you of traffic that would be crossing your path or people that would be crossing your path. And that's a nice little safety feature to have here. So again, blind spot detection going forward, rear cross traffic alert is what that's called when you're going rearward, and it's the same hardware used for two different systems. Now let's take it to the back. Take a look at the back of the car. Take a look at the trunk area of the Venue, the back end here, not a whole lot special. You've got kind of standard style lights. They can decorate those up in higher trim levels. You've got a reflector around your backup lights. The backup lights are actually placed low to the ground and actually give a pretty good amount of light when you're backing up. So they don't just warn people, they can actually help you see things that you're backing into, maybe a dark garage or something like that. Down here you have one of the nicest decals here, or one of the nicest emblems you have on the entire Hyundai lineup. It is actually a silver or a chromed outline with a white imprint. It's pretty nice, and you could put it on a high-end car, it would look nice. It's kind of nicer than this car. They don't do that on the higher-end cars, and it looks pretty good. I'll show you that in a second when we come closer. Overall, in a smaller car like this, sometimes it's tough to have this clear a 6-footer. I'm a 6-footer with shoes on, so you can see easily clearing here. There's a lot of little things I want to show you in the trunk here, so let's talk about that right now. All right, so I'm coming at this from an angle just to sort of give you a sense of what's going on here. A couple things I want to point out. Child seat anchor in all 3 seating positions. I know you can't see that one right now, but you could put your child seat in any spot. You probably can't fit 3 wide just because it's not a super wide car, but if you had to have 2 on the outside or if you had to have 1 in the center, you can choose which seating position you want to put that in. That's not always the case. Sometimes you're forced to choose a side, or at least forced to use a seatbelt instead. Now, this is something that's pretty cool. I'm going to disconnect the panel here from the tailgate so it comes down like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it forward a little bit and then I'm going to drop it. And you can see the track over here that it drops in. You don't have to take that out of the car to get the full height here to be able to use this area here. So that's kind of a nice feature. When the seats are up, it can store there. When the seats are down, obviously you can put it in the footwell area of where these seats will fold into, because there'll be nobody sitting there. But it does give you a space to put it that's super convenient. And then if the floor space isn't big enough for you, this drops a lot. So you can drop it down there on top of the spare tire and get a lot of extra height in here. So you can put something tall. So for a smaller trunk, you actually gain quite a lot of volume because you can stack things fairly high. Of course, you can fold the seats down, and then you have a big square entrance that gives you a ton of space for a smaller car. So a lot of practicality in the trunk here. Another little thing, there's a little grocery bag hooked right over here. So if you have, let's say, a bag of apples or oranges, you can hang them off there and they won't fly everywhere around in your trunk. So again, really smart design here with the lowering floor that really lowers a worthwhile amount. And this nice little track in here, which again, you can just pull it back up, put it in like that, hang it up onto the door panel or on the tailgate like that, and it is back in place. So super cool functionality in the trunk there. Before we leave the trunk area, I just want to show you that nameplate there. You can kind of see it here. It's got the chrome on the outside. It's got the white on the inside. So you can just kind of see it. It is just kind of cool. It looks much nicer in person than it shows up on video. But a nice little white and chrome mix there that you don't see everywhere else. So now let's jump in and let's start with the rear seat. Again, the rear door looks large, and it really is. It comes all the way back here, but really where you have to get in is much smaller, so you're climbing over that wheel well a little bit. That's kind of typical for the class. So already kind of a knock against it, right? It's gonna be a smaller entrance there for your feet, but once you get in, it's actually pretty spacious. So we'll show you that in just a second here. What I don't love is there's no pockets on the back of the seat, no USB ports, no extra vents. Now you can do a venting underneath the seat, so it's not like the heat doesn't reach. But yeah, just a whole lot of nothing. But plastic back seats mean that if you have kids in car seats, those will wipe clean with just a damp cloth. No little USB ports or vents for them to throw their Cheerios into. So there's a lot of practicality back here as well. But again, this seat is set to where I need it. It doesn't look like a whole lot of room. Let's jump in. I'll sit behind myself, so sit behind where I need it there right now, and we'll take a look. So this is where the Venue really shines. It's got plenty of room for a 6-footer like myself. I'm sitting behind myself. So again, you wouldn't expect a ton of legroom. I always do that the wrong way on the camera. You wouldn't expect a ton of legroom, and I don't have a ton of legroom, but I do have an inch of space for me sitting comfortably and for me sitting comfortably. So again, I think most people that buy this vehicle are not regularly taking full-size adults everywhere, every time. But when you do, they fit back here and they fit quite comfortably. And there's another little test that I like to do that doesn't always do so well in these small cars, and is, can I put my head back on the headrest? Because a lot of these cars will give you headroom right here, but they'll take it away as you slide back. And in this one, same thing. I can lie back here and relax, and I have headroom the entire way. So it does bump out over here, and part of that is because there's a sunroof over there. So the sunroof comes in over here, and then they give you more space there. Overall material quality here, again, a thinner roof liner. This isn't a luxury car. But again, who's tapping roof liners? Who cares? This is a perfectly usable space for the occasional full-size adult. Could you fit 3 across here? Yes, you can. Are 2 going to be more comfortable than 3? Absolutely. So a really practical car for someone who needs the rear seats for either children or the occasional adult. But let's be honest, you could travel long distance in this car if you had to. So very impressive rear seat. Let's check out what's in the front, because that's where there's a lot of things that I think are kind of hidden that I think we should show you. So heading towards the front seat, let's show you the key fob. First of all, that's what we've got. We've got lock, unlock, hold for a remote start, and you've also got the hold for the panic button. Nothing else on there. Decent shape and size to be not too huge for your pocket. Fits comfortably in there. I'm going to throw it in there because it is a keyless entry car with a push button start, which means this little button right here on the door handle is all you need to do to unlock the car. It's already unlocked. In fact, it's already running because it's a nice hot day. Let's jump in here. One thing I really like about this car is it has a height adjustable seat. So you can push this down to pump it down. You can pump it up as well by pulling it up. And it does create some height there, which can give you more and less legroom, because as you pump it higher, your legs don't have to be stretched out as far. They can come in more, right? As your seats come up. So even for a taller person with all the headroom you've got, you can pump it higher to create more legroom, but also you can get higher if you're a shorter person to see out a little bit better. The other thing I kind of like is they do a good job just giving a little bit of style to the seats. You've got some white stitching there, some lines through there that kind of run through. Just give a little bit of a look to this that is not so base model. All right, let's go wide angle for a second here. Let's jump in. All right, so again, you're not getting that forward collision safety, you're not getting the smart cruise control, you're not getting a few other things, and that gives you pretty good visibility. A lot of cars would have an area up here taken over, so overall visibility in this car is very good, because instead of having this pillar kind of come back towards you, it goes up away from you, and it does give good space here on the head. We'll flip the camera around a little bit. You do have the blind spot detection in the mirrors there. Again, there's some flickering in the dash that you're going to see that doesn't happen in real life. It's just the way the dash interacts with the camera sometime. You've got a decent display in here. It's not a color display, but it does have a number of things. Now remember, this car's been idling a lot, so if you see any fuel efficiency numbers, don't panic. Yeah, there we go. Average is 99.9 liters per fuel. That's like instant fuel efficiency as I've been idling here. 8 liters, same thing. This car's been idling a whole lot. There you go. But you've got some information in there which you can cycle through. I like that you have a digital speedometer there, and I like that you can switch it to miles per hour. You can see you hold down the OK button, and then it goes to that. Shows the outside temperature on the bottom left. That's 22 degrees Celsius, but it feels a lot hotter today. And distance to empty is shown up top right now with the gear indicator. So remember, the gear is the IVT transmission. What that means, it has up to 8 ratios it can cycle through, but it can really move infinitely between first and the low gear and the top gear. So it really kind of gives you an advantage for fuel efficiency. That's what you get that for. Other couple things I like is you do have auto headlights here. So you set them to auto and you never have to turn them on or off yourself. Let's see if I can get in there. There we go. So you can see, just set them to auto and they'll turn on and off with the light themselves. We're going to leave that off for now because they were off earlier. Down here, all you have is your traction control button right there and your ability to dim the light. So not a whole lot going on there. Let's go fully wide angle again, come over here. Well-placed vents to reach the driver and passenger out here. This is really the story of this car. Now, it's hard to film because this screen here, again, when you're looking at it with one eye of the camera versus 2 eyes of myself, my 2 eyes diffuse the glare. It looks like the glare is much worse on camera than it actually is in person. So let's just start with the backup camera. Very good quality here, nice and clear, or fairly clear compared to just about everything else that's out there. And you got the guidelines. That's a nice little thing to have. The biggest thing with this right here is not only does it have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which you can see right there, it has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. What that means is if you're in your car a lot or you're a younger person that uses your phone a lot, you've always got it connected to Android Auto and Apple CarPlay wirelessly. So instead of having to do the Bluetooth prompts and that kind of thing, you have a little bit more functionality, and that also gives you navigation through things like Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze, whatever you want, which means that this is a very, very useful piece of technology that grows with your phone rather than, you know, having an old car with old tech and that's the way it is. It's decently responsive. You can see it's fairly quick. This is got AM, FM with HD radio, no satellite radio in this car, but again, you have that ability to stream off your phone pretty easily in there. Not a whole lot of setup features in here. You can go to the general setting here, and there's not a whole lot in there. We'll basically device connections, you can change the display, you can program the button. Now that's a cool thing. This button here can be programmed to whatever you want. So if we press that button, let's just see. There we go. You can come through here and you can choose what you want it to be. So you can choose none, you can choose it to go to home, turn the display on or off, which is nice if you're driving at night a lot, you want a little bit less glare, you can turn it off. Phone projection, which means Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, just your phone, Bluetooth audio. So there's all kinds of things. You can program in a hard button to do what you want, and you can also change the mode of the steering wheel button to cycle through. Let's say you want to cycle through AM or FM, but you want to skip AM, go to Bluetooth audio and go to phone projection. When you press the mode button over here, you can checkbox what you want. So you're not skipping through AM if you never listen to AM radio or something like that, or other types of things. So kind of a cool way to do things there, just a little simple thing that you don't see everywhere. And then of course, hard buttons that are basically redundant. You never have to touch most of these buttons here, but you will be able to use the buttons, or like, let me just zoom in for a second here. There we go. You can see the setup button there, or there's a setup there. So again, hard buttons or dash works very well. Down here, basic climate control system. It does have air conditioning, which is on right now. No you know, dual zone temperature control or no digital air system. You just set it like you normally would on every other car. Down here, USB port on either side and a 12-volt port in the center. So any kind of power use you would need, you've got it. Push button starts right there. Gear shift down here, again, it's an IVT transmission, which is what their branded name for a CVT transmission is, but you can choose your own gears if you want. You can go up or down like that. Otherwise, you just keep it in drive and it does it for itself. Down here is another piece of kit that I quite like. First of all, we've got rump roasters, driver and passenger side. 3 levels of seat heating on these cloth seats. They warm up very quickly and get very, very hot. So you've got lots of warmth in here. And then you also have the steering wheel heater, which is not expected in this class. And once you have one, you'll never go back. And then there's the drive and the traction mode. So let's just show you what we've got by going to the dash and try to show you in here what we've got. So when I hit the drive and traction mode, first of all, drive mode, we've got normal. Sorry, we went to traction mode. So normal, eco, and sport. Let me make sense of those. Normal mode is just exactly that, normal. Eco is if you're driving efficiently anyways, in other words, kind of babying the car a little bit, it's going to work with you to get great fuel efficiency. The eco mode on its own will not give you great fuel efficiency. What it does do is dull the throttle and change essentially the shift points and that kind of thing to give you efficiency, always trying to search for a higher gear. So if you drive aggressively, eco is going to feel very dull, it's going to do weird things, and that's why they have a sport mode. If you drive aggressively, it's going to hold the revs longer, it's going to be a bit more touchy throttle, and it's going to give you that response that you want. So sport, eco, and normal, that's what you get there, and then you go over and you've got snow, mud, and sand. Now this is a front-wheel drive vehicle only. This is a typical drive mode on all-wheel drive vehicles. So what does it do here? Well, basically same idea with snow. It can dull the throttle, it can change the way the transmission works, it can work with your traction control on mud and sand to allow you to get a little bit less stuck. So if you're going camping, you get a little bit of mud, hey, you can put it in a mode that'll help you out. Get in the sand, it'll put it in a mode that'll help you out. And same thing with a snow mode here. Again, not an all-wheel drive car, but it does work with you to do everything it can to help you have traction. So we're just gonna leave it in the normal mode right there, and let's flip the camera around and show you what I look like in this car. So one thing I really like is great headroom. You've got quite a bit of it here. And again, I can move that seat up a long way, sort of sit in that sunroof area. And the other thing is, because this isn't a real swooped back like a sedan, the sunroof actually starts in front of my head, which means I benefit from the light over me. A lot of cars, when you sit there, if you're not super tall especially, the sunroof kind of starts back here and you don't have any benefit above you. So when you open this up on a, and actually let's just do that. When you open it up on a nice sunny day, you actually have the benefit of the sunlight and the fresh air there. and you can open it up a little bit more. It stops at the first line to give that reduced buffeting at speeds, but you can open it up more at slower speeds. And of course we can close it on down as well. So kind of nice to have a powered sunroof. And of course, if you don't want the sun in there, you can close it like that. It also tilts up. So if you just want to vent the car out where you're parked, it can tilt up like that to allow the hot air out, but not of course let people in. Driving position is very good, very comfortable. It's fairly square. You can see down here, again, my legs are fairly square and they're on the seat here. Again, you can raise that seat, lower that seat. So driving position for a small car, very comfortable. And you do sit a little taller than the typical small car, which gives you a better view and a more commanding seating position. Just before we jump out of the car, I want to show you back to the dash here, because there is one thing I should have probably showed you as well that gives you a little bit extra safety and security. You've got tire pressure monitors in here, which you can see right there. And when you display it, when you drive, it will display each individual tire pressure in PSI or other ways that you want. So you have a sense of what each wheel is doing. And then you have a number of your service or your user settings in here. So you can change a bunch of things. So driver assistance, for instance, we can click into that. You've got different warning timings, blind spot safety, you can turn it on, parking safety, you can turn those things on. So we talked about some of those features earlier in this video. Different things with the doors and the lights and the convenience features. Let's just slip into convenience features. Wiper and lights display, auto rear wiper, throw it in reverse and it'll throw on the rear wiper. This just displays when you turn your headlights. So again, when I turn the knob over here to auto or anything else, it will display what setting I'm in over there. And of course you've got gear position, all kinds of things, icy road warning. So if it gets below, I think it's 4 degrees Celsius that you'll see right there, it'll give you a little warning, hey, the roads might be icy. So you can turn those things on or off. And again, just nice little features to have. We'll go back up to the top here. We'll go back. And again, you can see service interval, you can set all that up as well. Lots of little features in here, language as well, but we're not gonna mess with that right now. So lots of features there to give you the features you need. Now let's jump out and talk about who this car is really for and who it's not for. So who is this car for? Well, first of all, this is the modern replacement for the typical subcompact car. What you get is a more SUV type style. So first of all, if you're looking for something small and fuel efficient, this is probably one of your better options. You can go with something that sits a little lower. You know, this just seems to me to be more comfortable. You also get some nice features here. The safety features like the blind spot detection and those kind of things, the rear cross traffic alert, in addition to the backup camera, which is now standard on everything anyways. It's also a good car for people who like technology. A lot of people try to consider, should I buy a used car that's maybe a little bit larger or a new car that's maybe a little bit smaller? If you go with the new car, you end up with wireless Android Auto, wireless Apple CarPlay. So what that means is a more used car or a larger car in the price range of this is not likely to have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay in a wireless format. This does, with a quick responding display, and that's a really nice thing to have because, again, you'll have it forever and it improves with the car. Every time CarPlay gets new or Android Auto gets newer, you have the benefit of having displays that get newer. It also gives you navigation in the car. Now, although this looks and functions like an SUV from the rear end to the roof rack, it is not all-wheel drive. If you need all-wheel drive or towing capacity, this thing is out. It will not do either of those things. There's no model of the Venue that has all-wheel drive and nothing that offers towing capacity. But if you don't need those two things, from a value for features perspective, this is a really great value car. So that's my review. If there's something I left out that you want to know more about, make sure you let me know in the comments and subscribe, and I'll make sure I answer those as well in future videos, because I'm filming here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, where they give me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. So if you're looking for a vehicle in Fredericton, New Brunswick, swing by Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, and you can compare this to all of its competitors with the same salesperson, Canada's huggable car dealer. They can give you numbers and all that stuff, and you know it's apples to apples comparison, and they don't care which car you buy the one that's best for you, and they'll help you find that. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you in the next one.